Yo, what your boy scene is. I want to go over why Matthew Stafford was deserving of MVP over Drake Maye. Um, to start off, he just had statistical dominance, right? Drake Maye had better, um, completion percentage, passer rating, stuff like that. But, you know, yards, touchdowns wise, Matthew Stafford was far and away the better quarterback, right? He had 300 more yards, 15 more touchdowns, right? If you look at that and just kind of ignore that to look at the um, more intricate, advanced passing metrics, I think that you're overlooking a major part of what makes a quarterback a quarterback. Um, it's it's not something that's like minute enough in the sense that it's not like it's 100 yards, it's five more touchdowns. No, 300 yards and 15 more touchdowns. That's you know has much more significance than people make it seem, right? And only six other quarterbacks, right, have put up 4,500 yards and 45 plus touchdowns in a season. That's not something that's just can be overlooked, right? You got to look at that and be, oh, okay, this guy's putting up stats that aren't done before, right? Or at least not frequently. Um, and I think that looking at that, you can also just say, well, Matthew Stafford, in like you shouldn't look at that and be like, give him the veteran argument, saying that oh he's a veteran, give him his flowers, stuff like that. Um, but like Drake May has so many more years to you know try to win MVP. He probably will one day. And look at Matthew Stafford, 37 years old, oldest first-time MVP in NFL history. So like, it doesn't really matter how old you are. At any point in your career, you can win MVP. Um, and it's just you also don't want to just look at the stats, right? You look at the stats, and it's you can go back and forth and on who you want to look at for more, you know, what you feel is what you feel is more important, right? You can look at that and be like, oh, the advanced stats are more important, or you can look at that and be like, yards and touchdowns are more important. Um, but if you want to look at the overall encompassing MVP award, you got to look at success. You got to look at how they led their team. And Matthew Stafford willed his team to victory, numerous times, right? But you have people argue, oh, well, Drake May had a worse team, right? He didn't have to do that, right? It's not his fault that his team is worse. It's not Matthew Stafford's fault his team is better. It's just how it happened to be, right? So I think it's an unfair argument to look at Matthew Stafford and say, oh, well, his team's better. He shouldn't even be in a spot where he's losing like Drake May. But then you look at it from a different point of view and you say, okay, well, Drake May played a much easier schedule, right? He was in the AFC East, Matthew Stafford's in the NFC West. And on top of that, the teams they just played are a lot different due to the fact that Rams were good the year before, Patriots were not. The Patriots actually had, easier games scheduled because of that. The Rams finished 12 and 5. The Patriots finished 14 and 3. Rams being the 5 seed, Patriots being the 1 seed. I think that it's also unfair to look at that and be like, oh, well, Drake May played almost equally as good and was on the number one team. Again, you got to look at the whole picture. You can't just look at the stats. You got to look at, the fact that he played a much easier schedule, right? I believe that if you took Matthew Stafford, put him on the, you put him on the Patriots, I believe that if you took Drake May and put him on the Rams, the records are going to look similar for the Patriots, and I think they're going to look a little different for the Rams. I think that there's games where Drake May just doesn't have that, that skill yet to just, will his team to victory where Matthew Stafford does. I think that Matthew Stafford and the Patriots are going minimum 14 and 3, if not better. I think that, the Rams are going with Drake May are going. They could go 12 and 5, but I think there's other games where, they could have lost as well if Drake May was the quarterback. Again, hypotheticals, right? But you got to look at, the whole picture and give all the context. Um, Yeah, Stafford, league leader in yards and touchdowns. May, fantastic efficiency rates, but they still have other things that went into their MVP cases. Um, and you could choose efficiency, you could choose production, whatever one you want to choose. It's just you got to look at both sides, both you know pictures to see the whole story. Um, I mean, this MVP voting was the closest since 2003, right? It was decided by one vote, um, and I think that was, I mean, valid, right? They were both very close. You could have gone either way. Some people would have preferred efficiency and record. Some would have preferred, production and just that. Um, Sorry, I just kind of blanked out. Um, the voters, I mean, you could look at efficiency or production, whatever one you choose. You could look at record. Um, I mean, there's a bunch of things that went into their choices on who they voted for. I think that the results were the right results. I think that Matthew Stafford was deserving of it. I think that most people agree he was deserving of it. Patriot fans will argue differently, but I think that the voters did not mess this one up and that they chose correctly. Um, I just want to pull something up real quick. Looking at, looking at this, you have, you know, 17 games played, right? But you look at this, 14-3, 12-5. Okay, completion percentage, Drake made it better. But look at this, 300 more passing yards, one more passing yard per attempt, right? And then he had about 20 more passing yards per game, about 15 more touchdowns, same interceptions. But then you look at this, their passer rating 113, 109. You also factor in, rushing stats. I don't think that matters all that much. Um, in this case, I think that, yeah, you could say Drake Maye is more mobile, but has Matthew Stafford ever been mobile? Right? You don't look at, I mean, Aaron Rodgers won MVP, Peyton Manning won MVP, Tom Brady won MVP, and they didn't have good rushing stats. So it's about, being a quarterback, not necessarily being a runner. But I think that all this goes to show that it was a very close race as it, was seen by one vote. It was decided, but I think that this was a good call by the voters, and I think that Drake May's gonna have years to come where he's putting up MVP caliber seasons, and I think that um, one of these days he will win it. It's uh, it's just nice that Matthew Stafford got his flowers and that he was able to, you know, finish his career. I mean, it's not technically done, but like start wrapping up his career with MVP and a Super Bowl after going years and years and years of just dog shit teams with the Lions. So this is what I believe is the reason, Drake May and Matthew Stafford had the outcomes they did, and I believe that it was the correct outcomes. So, hope you enjoy this video.